For the people that want the short answer, I'm not going to try to work through things. Let me explain. I saw many comments suggesting that she'd been dating, hoeing around, even some indicating she'd gotten pregnant. False. Like she said, she went to heal, and I believe her. Because when I tell you she was depressed, I mean it got to a point where I had to make sure someone was in the house at all times, just to make sure she didn't kill herself. And I don't feel like arguing on that topic with people that don't know her. I'd been thinking too fairy tale like when I saw her, probably because that's how our story has been. Fell in love quick, married young, and thought it was together forever. When I'd seen her for the first time in such a long time, I saw my wife. The woman I fell in love with, my best friend, and my life partner. That's who I instantly saw. But one quick good look in the mirror and a few days of thinking about it got me realizing that the same woman I married was not the same woman who left me. This past year has taught me, and I had to think back to how I was feeling the previous day before she showed up. I felt very good that past day. I spent the day with my son before dropping him to his mom's. I went to a bar with friends, and slept peaceful at my own home. My wife hadn't crossed my mind at all that entire day. I'd been happy beyond that past day. There is only one other person in my life right now that I need, my son. He's the reason I keep going every day. And for the quick moment I considered trying things out with my wife, it was incredibly selfish towards him. I mentioned this before, but he truly is a great boy. I still have love for her, and I'm happy that she's all right. But we're over. I told her this. We went out and spoke about everything for hours. We finally cleaned out everything from the nursery. She got most of her stuff. She'll be back soon to get the rest. She'll always be a part of my story. There's no erasing her or the love we had. What we had was magical at one point, but our story together ends at divorce. As for me, life's only moving, and I gotta make the best of it. So far I have been, and it's been going good. Story 2, my 28 Fahrenheit's BF, 40 millions, got me a sentimental B-Day gift, and I feel guilty that I don't like it. I feel so spoiled and guilty right now and would appreciate some feedback. My BF and I have been dating for 3.5 years, and he's always spot on with gifts. So it's not like he doesn't know me, doesn't pay attention to my likes and dislikes. To clarify, Lowell. For Christmas he got me a beautiful gold chain. My birthday was yesterday, and he was hinting that he was having a custom pendant made for me for my birthday. It finally came in today. Before I opened it, he explained that this was a custom replica of a pendant his mother had and was buried with. He lost his mother when he was 9 in a very tragic way, and was unable to even attend her funeral. The pendant his father got her was something he remembers well. I opened it, and it was a large heart pendant with white gold details. It was a beautiful piece, and I appreciated the sentimental value so much. But it's totally not my style at all, and I feel so bad. I told him it was beautiful and instantly put it on to wear it. He could tell that I wasn't head over heels about it. I told him I typically don't like heart-shaped jewelry, or white gold, but that it's the story behind it all and how special it is to him that matters. He offered to exchange it for something else but would lose money since it was custom. I told him it was no problem because I will happily wear it. But at the same time, I feel really bad that I don't like it as much as I feel I should. I feel bad that he spent a lot of money on something I only like due to the background. It makes me feel conflicted and spoiled. If you were in my shoes, would you just happily wear it? Or pick something else out? Update. My 30 Fahrenheit's husband, 34 minutes. Keeps sneaking out in the middle of the night. Update. Hello all, I wanted to provide you with an update. Apologies for taking so long to update. My life has been a whirlwind for the past 8 months. And I honestly haven't been in the best mental state. Also, trigger warning. This update touches on topics of depression, drug use, and cheating. So about 2 months ago, a police car pulled up to my house and 2 police officers knocked on my door. They told me they were there to do a wellness check on my husband's name, because his girlfriend hadn't heard from him in 3 days and was worried about him. They asked me if I was his sister or what my relationship to him was. I told them I was his wife, and beyond that I can't even remember what I said. I was in shock. I just remembered them leaving and me closing the door and crying. He was at work at the time, and when he got home he could tell I was upset. I mean, it was obvious, because every time I tried to speak I would just start crying again. Eventually it got to the point that, I guess, he knew he had to come clean, and he told me everything. So yeah, I found out he had been cheating on me with an ex-coworker of his. Not only this, but had been supporting her and her 2 kids. Because she couldn't hold down a job and he didn't want them to end up homeless. The reason she couldn't hold down a job is because she is into drugs and would go on week-long benders where she just wouldn't show up to work. And he says that about a year ago she called him out of the blue and cried to him saying that she was about to lose her apartment because her husband was cheating on her and had basically vanished. Ironic. I know. Leaving her with all the bills that had to be paid, and her 2 kids needed food and new stuff for school. He says that at first it was just financially supporting her and her kids, until he started doing the drugs with her, and that's when things escalated. He told me he had cut things off with her 3 days before the police showed up, and that's why they were doing a wellness check. So I asked him if that was where he was going when he was sneaking out. He said yes for the most part. He also said, to be fair, I really would just go on a walk or drive around sometimes. I know there are going to be questions about how I didn't notice the missing money. So here's my answer. We have separate bank accounts. He pays for his bills and I pay for mine. And our joint bills come out of my account, and he pays me back whatever the total is for those bills. And well, he never stopped paying me for those bills. And household things that were in his name never got shut off. So I never had a reason to think anything was wrong in that area. I have been so emotionally numb for these past 2 months, and he has been begging me for about 2 months to make a decision about our relationship, as in divorce or work things out, because being in limbo is really stressful for him. I honestly just don't want to even put any energy into thinking about the future at all right now. All of my friends and family are telling me to get a divorce. But I don't know, everything had been great up until 8 months ago. And our lives are so intertwined. That feels so stupid to say, but I'm basically paralyzed with numbness. I did, however, make an appointment for couples therapy, so I guess I will see how that goes. He seems up to it. And I just wanted to extend a thank you to all the people that took the time to read this, and the last one. Story 4. My husband won't let me have a pet because of his grandfather clause. How can we agree on this? I'd like to preface by saying we are happily married and have no other problems like this. My husband got a dog, Kira, a month after we met a few years ago. So Kira has been with us for almost our entire relationship. I love dogs, love having pets, and while she's not the breed I would have chosen, she's an absolute sweetie and we have lots of fun with her. That is not the issue. The problem is that my husband won't let me have any pets of my own. When we met, I had just moved to the town he's in for work. My plan was always to get a pet as soon as possible, and I was finally in a situation where it was realistic. His plan was to get Kira, and then have puppies from her when she was older, and keep one of the puppies. He believes that because Kira got here just after we met, and his plan was already in effect, he has a grandfather clause that trumps my lifelong dream of having my own pet. Essentially, he's saying that he beat me to it. He got a dog first, so now I cannot get one. He refuses to have any more dogs in the house. He will not allow another dog unless it's Kira and one of her puppies. My argument is that we both had a grandfather clause in place, that my dream and my plan was to have a pet as soon as possible. I don't think it's right for him to deny me this dream just because he wants to have 2 of the same dog. He has been open to me getting a cat, but will only allow a cat of a certain gender, age, and color. He is also mildly allergic, and wants the cat to mostly live outside if so. Occasionally, I'll show him photos of dogs that I like, and he will shut it down and say that if he were to allow it, it would have to be this breed or that breed instead. I try to explain that we cannot only live his life. We are living in his town. I was meant to stay here temporarily, but he can't move anywhere else. In his house, I moved into the house he already owned, with his pet. I feel like he has to compromise and allow me to fulfill this dream of mine as well. I have no problem with him having Kira or one of her puppies, but they are his dogs. He chose the breed, the gender, the color, the training methods, the activities, the equipment, etc. I would like to have a choice as well. We live in a 300 SQM house with a fenced yard, so space is not the issue. We make good money, so finances is not the issue. We have time to walk, train, and play with the dogs, so time is not the issue. We need some outside advice. Do I need to let go of my pet dream and understand we can only have the pets he's chosen because Kira was here first? Story 5. My 30 Fahrenheit's dad, 67 millions, told me that I as his caregiver, should wait until he's dead before I can have a life. Now, I don't know what to do. I've never posted anything like his before and need outside opinions since I can't see through this mess clearly. I'd also like to apologize for this long backstory, but hopefully it will all make sense in the end. For what it's worth, I hope some of you will take that time to read this. I'll put asterisks next to the beginning of the incident. I, 30f, had a decent childhood filled with ups and downs like anybody else. My parents, 70f and 67 millions, are still together. My dad, 67 millions, physical and mentally abused me as far back as I can remember. The physical abuse has stopped, but the mental has continued. I say continued, because I still live with my parents. I always did pretty well in school and even went to college on my parents' dime, which I'm immensely and forever grateful for. I had a job my third year of college and held that for about a year and a half. If I remember correctly, I left because of the toll it was putting on my body. I have a plethora of health conditions, including a heart problem, an autoimmune disease, diabetes, arthritis, and severe depression. Needless to say, I'm a bit of a mess. Anyway, I graduated college in December of 2019, and of course COVID hit in 2020. Because of that, I wasn't able to get a job until October of 2022. It was a big deal for me because it was only my second job I've ever had, and with my abysmal work experience and virtually non-existent resume, I was happy just to start somewhere. The reason why I didn't have other jobs until then was because I was my parents' caregiver. I did the majority of the cooking, cleaning, yard work, in the summer, laundry, taking care of our animals, lots of cats and a couple of dogs, doing the grocery shopping, getting the oil changed, cutting my dad's hair, etc. Eventually, as my parents grew older, the type of things that needed to be done morphed over time. My dad became wheelchair-bound, beside walking here and there around the house, so I started taking him to and from work. I also manage his schedule for doctor appointments and getting him there and back since he can't drive anymore. My mom has had multiple surgeries that I've taken care of her from. I drove her to do different things, like getting a new sewing machine cabinet, going to work conferences that were some distance away, and helping her with different things around the house. As she's gotten older, like my dad, she has many health problems now. For one, she can't walk very far, and for the most part no longer drive well. She also has 2 torn rotator cuffs, and her mind isn't as sharp or coherent anymore. I also have had surgeries, and other things happen that my parents have taken care of me for. It's a push and pull kind of relationship. I don't have to pay for anything, but I do mostly everything else. Because of this, I haven't really been available to find a job, hence the poor resume. In 2017, I started a new relationship with my current boyfriend, 32 millions. He has helped me through a lot, and been there for me through several surgeries, the mental abuse from my dad, helping out around my house occasionally, and other minor things. He lives in his own apartment, so we visit each other whenever we can, and it's worked out well so far. It all started about a week ago when I went to go get a puppy for our other dog who was getting lonely. My parents and I had talked about it for several weeks before we drove hours away to adopt her. I didn't tell my boyfriend because he always mentions that I have too many animals as is. He says this because if I move out, I'd have to take the animals that have bonded with me, and he's not sure how many we can afford to have. My boyfriend and I had been talking about either getting a place of our own, or ideally him moving in with my parents and I for several years now. I mentioned it to my mom, and she was a bit surprised, maybe taken aback, by my comment. Nothing became of it until maybe half a year ago when I discussed this with my mom again. She was unsure, and said she would talk to my dad. Apparently, what she didn't tell me was he was very upset, mad even, at this suggestion, so she let it go. Remember me not tell my boyfriend about the puppy? Well, he was extremely agitated with me when I finally told his several days later. I knew he was going to be mad either way, so I figured I'd tell him after the fact. He told me that waiting to tell him instead of discussing it with him was making him second-guess our relationship since it made him feel like his opinion didn't matter. He said it also felt like I didn't trust him enough, and that maybe our priorities aren't the same. I apologized profusely. I hadn't thought of it that way, and it didn't even cross my mind what would happen to the puppy if I move out. He forgave me, and we continued to discuss how we would continue to move forward with the housing situation. So, I talked to my mom the next about what had happened between myself and my boyfriend. She seemed like she was more on board with my boyfriend moving in with us. She wasn't so sure about the logistics of it and didn't think could happen right away, but it was at least heading in the right direction. Later that night, I asked my dad if Mom had talked to him about if it would be possible for my boyfriend to move in. It did not go well. My dad basically exploded at me. He told me that as long as his name was on the mortgage and he was living under this house, there was no way he would let him live with us. I asked him why. He told me he doesn't need a reason why. I understood to a certain extent that yeah, it was a lot to ask for, but I figured it would be easier for everyone in the long run. It would be more income for the house since my mom retired a couple of years ago. It would mean more help around the house as well. Then I told him if I move out, then that means no more help with anything around the house. No more errands, no more cleaning, helping him keep track of appointments, and making sure he takes meds on time. I started explaining that he's kind of putting me in a difficult situation if I move out. He said he didn't care. Said that he can always hire help if he needed it since all I do is sleep, which in the past couple of years is true, I suppose. I'm still doing stuff around the house, just not as much as I used to. He told me that I should have thought of all of this a long time ago, instead of gallivanting around with my boyfriend. After a bit of pushing, my dad told he hated my boyfriend. He said that he didn't like the way he treated me, among other things that I can't remember at the moment. I then asked him what was I supposed to do otherwise. He told me that I should have waited until both of them, my parents, were dead, and then I could go and do whatever I wanted. I wasn't sure how to respond to any of that. My eyes started to water, but I waited till he went to bed before I broke down. I felt as though all my time and effort into taking care of everything was worthless. That I wasn't supposed to have a life outside of them, and that I was worthless. Of course, I consulted my boyfriend, sobbing about what my dad had said to me. He was as surprised as I was about the fact that my dad didn't like him. However, he wasn't surprised that my dad rejected the idea of moving in. My boyfriend said that it's my dad's house, and he can do what he wanted with it. He was also trying to comfort me about what my dad said about me. He told me that he's probably being mean for the sake of being mean, that I should try and move forward from here. The next morning I talked with my mom about everything that had happened, from not telling my boyfriend about the puppy, to talking with my dad about the living situation, to him telling me that I was worthless, then tell my boyfriend about our conversation. The only real response I got was that I shouldn't have told my boyfriend about my dad hating him. That was it. No comforting words. No discussion about anything else. No telling me that I wasn't worthless. Nothing. I was stunned. My mom is usually a very caring person, and she's, for the most part, had my back about a lot of stuff. I got nothing. Needless to say, I'm pretty broken up about the whole situation. I feel like I'm being pulled in so many directions that I can't tell which was up or down. I keep questioning myself. What am I supposed to do if my parents have to go into a long-term care facility? What about the house? The animals? I feel like I'm having to choose between my parents and my boyfriend. I feel selfish for even asking them now. Any constructive advice is much appreciated. I'll try to answer questions in the comments.